And we're live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of This Week in Real Estate. I'm Ray, and I'm your host. And I appreciate you, all of you, joining me today for this beautiful Wednesday, October 1st, 2025. That's when it was recorded live. We got lots of news for you today. Is Zillow finished? Is this the nail in the coffin? Because they're fighting with the government. And usually, when people start the government fight, it starts to get a little hairy. So we'll see how that turns out. They're also still fighting with CoStar, bickering. And so we'll hear that back and forth. And then we got some economic news. So what exactly is going on with pending home sales? Why is the mortgage rate not decreased? I mean, I thought the Fed lowered the rates. What's happening? So we're going to be talking about more about all of that stuff. And we're broadcasting live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. Let's see, where else? Kick, Twitch, Instagram. Oh, I got to hit the go button on Instagram again. I forgot to hit the go button on Instagram. All right, now we are live on Instagram as well. And let's see, on YouTube. And if you're watching on any of those platforms, you can comment. I could display your comment, just like Olivier. Olivier said, Zillow is finished. Is as finished as Matt's golf game. Matt is here, and he said, just finished my weekly 18. Scap, he shot an 84. There you go. So I can add your comments to the show just like that. If you're listening on Clubhouse, we're also broadcasting live there. You can raise your hand, and if you have a bio, the administrators will bring you up to the front. And they will let you speak your mind, speak your piece, and it'll be added to the podcast. And all of this is recorded and added to your favorite podcatcher. So if you're on... I don't know if you like iTunes, Spotify, whatever it is, download us there and be sure to give us a good rating there. So thank you everybody for joining. And without further ado, I got stuff in my chair in the back. Sorry about that. I usually try to cover the mess, but not today. We're busy. Hello everybody. Zillow back in the news, and this ain't good for them. The FTC is after them now. So there's a lot of legal bodies that get after us in real estate. And the FTC is one that you don't want after you. So the FTC is suing Zillow and Redfin, alleging antitrust violation in online rental listings. What? I thought we were all above reproach on that. The Federal Trade Commission is suing real estate agent giants Zillow and Redfin, alleging the two illegally conspired to reduce competition in the online multifamily rental listing market. In the complaint, the FTC alleges that the companies violated the federal antitrust laws earlier this year when Zillow paid Redfin $100 million to essentially rehost Zillow multifamily rental listings on Redfin and its sites. Zillow and Redfin owned platforms such as Zillow Rentals and Rent.com are used by millions of Americans searching for their next home. As part of the arrangement, the agency said that Redfin agreed to terminate contracts with its existing advertising customers and assisted Zillow in acquiring that business. Okay. All right. So we can figure out what's happening here. They paid $100 million to rehost Zillow multifamily rental listings. So Zillow had multifamily rental listings on their website that I'm assuming they were representing, or it was like a straight landlord to consumer, landlord to tenant type of relationship. And then they convinced Redfin, with $100 million, to rehost those and terminate the agreements that they had. As part of the arrangement, the agency said Redfin agreed to terminate contracts with its existing advertising customers and assisted Zillow in acquiring that business. Redfin also committed to don't send me a text during the show. Just instead of texting me during the show, just put a comment in the comments, because I'm not going to read your text. If you want to be anonymous, just say I want to be anonymous and put it in there. Even if you know stuff. If you know stuff, you can send me a DM. I'll read your DM, but I'm not going to read it out loud. Okay, sorry. Redfin also committed to staying out of the multifamily advertising market for up to 9 years and reduce its role in merely syndicating Zillow's listings, making Redfin sites virtually identical to Zillow's. I wonder if this was figured out through the CoStar deal. You know, they had all these CoStar multifamily listings that had the little CoStar logo on the photo, and they were also syndicated to Redfin somehow. I wonder if that's how the FTC traced this deal. The FTC also alleges that Redfin fired hundreds of employees shortly after the deal was signed and then helped Zillow selectively rehire many of them. Paying off a competitor to stop competing against you is a violation of antitrust laws, said Daniel Garnera, director of the FTC's Bureau of Competition. Zillow paid millions of dollars to eliminate Redfin as an independent competitor in an already concentrated advertising market, one that's critical for renters, property managers, and the health of the overall U.S. housing market. So there you go. They're paying off their competition to get out of the business. Did you guys know this was illegal to do? That you can't just pay off your competition and ask them to exit? I think a lot of people probably don't know that that's illegal. Following the FTC's announcement, shares of Zillow and Redfin parent companies Rocket fell sharply. Oh, that's also convenient. Redfin and Rocket merged/sold. So now it's Rocket's problem. Okay. So a lot of people are saying that this is going to be a bigger hit to Zillow than anyone's thinking. There's a lot of pundits out there pontificating about the Redfin Zillow partnership, saying that this is going to open up a lot of this type of activity through discovery and all kinds of stuff like that, not just through Redfin, that there are other deals. So we'll see. We'll see. I don't know that that's true. It's allegedly.
Hey, Ray, could you make a correlation where an agent pays Zillow to highlight their listing and then therefore pushes competition for other listings down? Isn't that kind of similar? I mean, you're not paying them to get completely out, but you're paying somebody to highlight you're paying a company to highlight your listing.
To push you to the top?
And if you pushes you to the top, and if you don't pay them to highlight, then they're going to give your listing to a different agent. An agent that pays to get those leads from somebody else that doesn't pay for that listing to be highlighted.
That's interesting thought. I think if I could say, hey, Zillow, actually, I'm going to pay you $20,000 and I don't want you to have any of my competition on this website, that would be illegal. But saying I want you to promote me above them is a feature, I don't know that is, because they also have the same opportunity. If they didn't have that same opportunity somehow, maybe.
Well, but do they really? Because you can only highlight so many listings.
Yeah, and then they're all highlighted. I mean, that would be the...
Yeah, they're either all or all not. Right?
We want to do this on every listing. Well, and maybe the promotion of it ahead of other listings is the small part of what they do. Maybe the larger part of what they do is have the additional listing benefits on their website.
Because if the listing isn't highlighted by the listing agent paid for, then Zillow pushes their listings.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm hoping, to be frank, I'm hoping that the FTC finds other stuff, because with them sniffing around and with the DOJ sniffing around, I mean, the Rocket Redfin deal to me reeks. The Rocket with Rocket Mortgage approved agents taking referral money without disclosing that referral money is going back to Rocket Mortgage reeks. The Zillow Flex lawsuit that we talked about last week reeks. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of issues. Brian Hershey's here from college. Brian Hershey says tortious interference 101. It's more than that. It's exiting the contracts in a way that is a detriment to disclosure. Tortious interference is when you intentionally interfere with other companies' contracts or relationships that causes measurable financial harm. So the FTC will approach it from an anti-competitive POV. But all the lost contracts have literal textbook slam dunk case for tortious interference, so they're liable for multiple angles. Interesting, Brian. That's a great point. He said, which literally begs the question, did they even talk to an effing lawyer? Well, a lot of people think they're too big to sue. So, yeah.
But doesn't it get compounded by the fact that Zillow refuses to put companies' private listings once they go onto their platform?
Say that again. You broke up. It's like you're in a bad spot.
The Compass is private listings.
Oh, yeah.
Once they go public, Zillow doesn't want to put them on their website still.
Yeah, that's also still a lawsuit. So Zillow, I think, I'm losing count. You know how we had the count of the NAR lawsuit tracker? We need to count for Zillow lawsuit trackers. Mia Zoll's over on Instagram saying, wonderful. Hi. Hello. And Pink Bug Realtor says hi over on Instagram. Is it that you keep saying FCC, Brian? Do you mean FTC? FCC's Federal Communication. The FTC is the Federal Trade. Yeah, FTC is the one we're dealing with here. But can the FTC get involved in the tortious interference, or I think that has to be the DOJ, right? I don't know. I get confused on what government agency can come after us because, after real estate agents, because there have been so many. But yeah, they're in a lot of trouble right now, which it's got to have a negative impact. They can't just continue to operate as they are without changing anything. So something's going to change. But I'm wondering in what other ways it makes me wonder, is there other ways that they've suppressed competition, which is why they are number one currently? Their biggest competition is realtor.com and homes.com. And I think you can add both of them up together and it probably doesn't equal Zillow's prominence in the marketplace. So Redfin was one because they're backed with a lot of agents. They had a chance, I think.
You said suppressing competition. I remember, a couple of years ago, you went down the list of all the trademarks and copyrights that Zillow had for different technologies. So including something with BlackBerry Messenger or something like that.
Yeah. There was also one that was the display of real estate information on a website that was patented. Yeah, it was very intentionally vague, and I don't think they ever could do anything with that, or they didn't do anything with that. But yeah. Brian said, no, those are civil suits. Okay, so the tortious interference would be a civil suit, which is a different litigation. He said, but here's the truth. Zillow knew this is only serving the top shareholders. Zillow was never about serving the community. So risk was built in. Yeah, I've said for a long time that Zillow is not a consumer website. It is a website built to make money off of real estate agents for investors. That's the point. And if you go there thinking, oh, this is great as a consumer, you're mistaken. So there's multiple articles about this. You guys can also look at the one on Inman if you'd like. Let me see. I thought there was another quote on this one. In its complaint, the FTC alleged that Redfin had completely shut down its rental operations as part of the agreement. Quote, going forward, its websites will serve as merely one of several syndicators hosting a copy of Zillow's listings, the complaint said. In a response to the lawsuit, Zillow defended its agreement with Redfin. They said it is pro-competitive and pro-consumer by connecting property managers to more high-intent renters so they can fill their vacancies and more renters can get a home. We remain confident in this partnership and the enhanced value that it delivered and will continue to deliver customers. I don't know. That doesn't sound like a rousing, approval of what they did. It just sounds like they're saying something that is marketing speak. So, all right, we'll see what happened there. And it's also on Broke Agent Media. Broke Agent Media has the Coldplay for the audio listeners, the Coldplay concert with the CEO and the secretary or whatever. And Redfin is the CEO and Zillow's the secretary. It's clever. Oh, and if y'all haven't followed that drama, that's a whole nother thing. Is anyone following this? Have you heard like the details that they were separated and apparently the lady's husband was also at the same Coldplay concert with his mistress? And they both knew? Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
She was HR.
Oh, yeah, that's right. She was HR. She wasn't secretary. She was HR. My bad. But yeah, so the HR lady, apparently her and her husband were separated, and they were both at the same concert with their own respective Mr. and mistresses. So apparently, allegedly, that's what I'm getting from the TikToks. Okay, but anyway, that one's also on Broke Agent Media, so you could go there if you're not behind the paywall. All right, so, but this is not where Zillow's problem ends. It appears to only be ramping up with these lawsuits. CoStar calls out Zillow for doubling down on stolen photos. I thought this was kind of ending, but in a September 30 press release, CoStar Group shared an update on its lawsuit, claiming the company has continued to use nearly 8,000 of the original copywritten photos and has even added thousands more. What? On July 30th, they filed the lawsuit of nearly 47,000 CoStar owned real estate photos being shared on Zillow, seen over 200 and something thousand times, we calculated. And we think that was like 5 views per photo is what we also were looking at. You remember the math we ran there? I can't remember what the cost per view was, but we even calculated the cost per view of the lawsuit, which is funny. So despite reports that Zillow started removing the photos from its site, CoStar's update claims that thousands of disputed images are still there. According to the press release, almost 8,000 of those photos remain on Zillow.com. Since CoStar Group just filed the suit, Zillow has displayed at least 4,618 additional CoStar-owned images. So there's basically continuing the same behavior since the lawsuit was filed. Beyond Zillow.com, CoStar alleges that the disputed images continue to appear through syndication and affiliated websites, like Redfin. See? This has created a whole issue for themselves, this syndication from their own data, from their own website, but not owning the content that they're syndicating. That's the difference in real estate agents and Zillow. As a real estate agent, I have a contract with the owner, and I have approval of that owner to display that information on a website and syndicate it to third-party sources. But Zillow doesn't have that same contract with the owner. So this is very interesting. CoStar emphasized the scale of its investment in professional photography and the size of the real estate photo library. They said, quote, despite being caught red-handed blatantly stealing our copywritten work, Zillow has doubled down to exploit the thousands of additional copywritten images without any shame. And then they just have some words from the legal stuff. CoStar said it would vigorously pursue its case against Zillow. So what's interesting, they didn't offer any photos this time. So there's no screenshots or photos. And I'm not saying that as in don't trust it. What I'm saying is I wouldn't either, because that would basically tell Zillow where to find the problem. And it's not like a guy at Zillow going and right-clicking on photos on CoStar, copying it and putting it over. Well, actually, I'm saying we know it's not, but in reality, that would be hilarious if it was. So it is probably some auto syndicated feed or some kind of bot set up to go grab them and put them there. So it's something that's being syndicated to them. And if CoStar came out and showed the photos, then Zillow would be able to say, okay, here's the property. What's happening with that property? Let's find this problem and fix it. But by not showing the property, it's genius. Zillow has to look through all of their photos, through all of their listings, and find the issue. So I think it's really funny. Pinkbug Realtor says, does that mean the agents also have a suit against Zillow for the photo usage? So this was actually litigated years ago, Pink. and I think it was on our show. And there were people suing Zillow because they had rights to the photos and Zillow was using those photos. Apparently it is in the agreement with the MLS, or it was somewhere in one of the documents we all signed. It's somewhere there. And it allows them to use it. And then when you sign up as a real estate agent, it allows them to use it. It's those end user license agreements that no one uses. That's where it is. So they do have, I'm not an attorney, but they do have the ability to use our photos.
There was a photographer that successfully sued, though, wasn't there?
There was. So there was a photographer company that sued successfully because the photographer company that's different, right? The photographer company was saying, hey, you're still using these photos after these properties have sold and we own these photos. And so they went out and tried to sue them. I think they settled out of court. So that's the same type of suit that CoStar is bringing now. Which also makes you wonder, like, did CoStar see the pattern and say, I know what we could do. Let's take all these photos and then get Zillow to pay for it because they're going to use this stuff stupidly and we could just sue them. Which is a brilliant business move. If you see a pattern of problems from your competitor, then you take advantage of it to get them to pay for the work you're having done. I mean, maybe I'm giving them too much credit, but that would be rad if it comes out years later in the CoStar versus Zillow book. That would be a rad story. What's up, John Silva? So I see a lot of you joining on Instagram, and several of you are talking on Instagram, which is cool, but the number on Instagram is not representative of the number of people that I see coming through or talking. So it's kind of interesting. Like Pink, I thought you left a long time ago because it went all the way down to 0, but you're still here. So I don't know. So if you're joining us on Instagram, say hi. All right. So Zillow is not to be outdone. You know, if there's ever a good chance to clap back, Zillow is going to take advantage of the clap. So Zillow hits back at CoStar and defends the use of the photos. For the audio listeners, it's the meme of the lady pointing at the cat and the cat's looking at the salad. Yeah, Zillow is the lady pointing. The cat is CoStar. Zillow fired back at CoStar in the ongoing copyright lawsuit over listing photos on September 29th. Let's see. I think it should be it. Filed a letter criticizing CoStar's legal tactics and asking the court to move the case to Washington State. Just a day later, on September 30th, CoStar issued an update, doubling down on the stolen photos. Zillow's letter painted CoStar's lawsuit as part of a broader pattern of aggressive litigation. Quote, this case is CoStar's latest attempt to weaponize copyright litigation for competitive pressure, consistent with its history of filing suits against industry rivals. I mean, it does do that. I mean, CoStar is I mean, they will sue you if you wrong them. But I think that's your only, like, what is your other option? You're not going to have fisticuffs. You're not going to fight. What's up, Silver Creek Valley? What's up, Scat? I see you over there. It's your first time on Instagram trying to maximize his viewing experience and up my numbers. Thank you very much. Welcome to the Instagram viewing. What's the audio quality like over there? So in a lawsuit, this lawsuit is nothing more than a calculated attempt to misuse copyright law to sideline Zillow and lock in CoStar's control. But now I think it's a calculated attempt to use, not misuse, to use copyright law to get all that photo work paid for. That's really what I think now. Where's my foil? I need tin foil.
Isn't that what the Zillow does? All the copyright stuff? Like, come on.
Yeah, turnabout is fair play. Isn't that what people say? Oh, wait, no, wait. Now they say, oh, how the turntables. Yeah. The letter also argues that CoStar watermarked the photos at the center of the dispute were lawfully provided to Zillow by its customers. The company claims that it follows the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, DMCA, giving copyright holders a process to request the photo takedowns, which is something CoStar bypassed by filing the suit directly. These photos were provided by Zillow's customers, who grant Zillow a license to use the photos and warrant that they have all the rights to do so. Further, Zillow has an established policy of allowing copyright owners to request takedown materials of which they claim copyright. Consistent with the DMCA, rather than use this system, CoStar chose to shift the burden to the courts to file a suit without prior notice. So what Zillow is alleging is kind of what we were talking about. If those photos were uploaded by their clients, then there's a button that says you have access and rights to these photos to use these photos, and we're going to trust you. Oh, he says, Scap the appraiser says, it's superb. You sound silky smooth. Oh, Teddy Swim voice. Thank you very much. It's one of my favorite singers, Pink. He has all said it's great. What's up, Mia? See, there's way more of you over there watching than the little number says. So I appreciate you guys over there watching on Instagram. Thank you for participating. All right. I don't know how, I guess in discovery, CoStar would be able to find out the process and the code on the back end of Zillow's site to figure out where those photos came from. And if it was syndicated from CoStar or sent from somewhere else, then I think CoStar has a case. But if the clients are uploading those photos, CoStar's case is going to kind of start to melt. And also, this is an interesting point about the DMCA. There is a process to say this is copywritten, take it down. But usually you see that stuff on like YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. Rarely is it on a competing platform like Zillow. For instance, I will upload something to Instagram and then somebody will copy it. They'll take it and put it on their own thing. Most of the time, I don't really care unless it's an unsavory account. If it's an unsavory account, I issue a DMCA and it gets taken down. But Instagram is not my competitor. They're the platform. So in this case, you have potentially the platform. So the difference is I upload a piece of content and Instagram themselves takes that content and puts it somewhere else to market in some way that I don't get paid. That would be different than a DMCA. A DMCA would be against the other person. I would assume this would be against the platform. And in that case, I feel like I could sue them. I feel like I could say, you told me I could put these over here, but you're uploading them to your own platform. What's going on? I don't know. Maybe that's not a great analogy, but I see your comment, Mia. What's up, Mia? She said it's great. Thank you, Mia. What's up, Christian? So Zillow's request to move the case to Washington. This was also interesting. Zillow's attorneys pointed to the company's terms of use, which they say require disputes to be connected to its websites be litigated in Washington courts. And user license agreement, TOS, terms of use. According to Zillow, CoStar filed the case in New York to avoid unfavorable Ninth Circuit precedent, which has been handled numerous copyright issues. So there you go. And then CoStar came back. So I guess those are out of order. But if you look at the Broke Agent Media news lately, this is kind of funny. I'll just click their main site. If you look at their news, here's RE News. It is FTC sues Zillow. Zillow hits back at CoStar. CoStar calls out Zillow. Zillow hit with class action. And then you have the compass to acquire anywhere. Oh, and then you have two more, and then new Zillow showcase tool lets buyers restyle. And then Zillow starts pulling CoStar copyright listings. So of the top 10, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Of the top 10, more than half of them are Zillow. More than half of the news lately is Zillow. And not just Zillow, but Zillow in trouble. So we'll see where it goes. Any comments on the Zillow? The one story that we haven't covered this week that we covered last week was the class action lawsuit. If you haven't heard about this, I'll just give you a quick synopsis. But there's a class action lawsuit against Flex, the Flex program, saying that Zillow did not disclose that they would be making 40% of the commissions to the buyers that came through the Flex program. So you can bet that that's going to start changing. And I think that's a great case because the buyers are saying it inflated what we would have to pay our agent. So there you go. That's similar. That's being brought by the same people who brought the other case last year, the Moore case against real estate agents. All right. So what do we got? Any comments on Zillow?
That's a consumer one. So
yeah,
I mean, they're getting hit from all sorts of directions.
Yep.
From the government to other corporations and businesses to the consumer. And I would imagine there's probably there somewhere too. Who knows? It hasn't come out yet. I think the agents could probably say some of the same things when it comes to the Flex program too. Like, hey, you inflated it, and it hurt our business or whatever. So I don't know. There's probably another angle that could be hitting them for. But I don't know. Pile on. That's all I got to say is pile on.
Do you think? I mean, I feel like it might be a dumb question to ask, but at the same time, I don't. Do you feel like they're going to survive it? Are they going to make it through all these lawsuits?
But I would imagine they're going to have to pay a lot of money. They may lose stock, and they will probably lose some of their revenue income because they're going to have to make a lot of big changes or drastic changes until they figure out how to skirt around some of this other stuff again. You know, especially if you get such a large group of agents like the 340,000 with the whole Compass Anywhere deal, you know, that to me is like a real kick in the pants when you talk about, hey, that company as a whole, if it ever goes through, could just say, we're not going to use Zillow. We don't need them.
Yeah.
And honestly, they're large enough to say, we don't need them. Heck, we don't need NAR. We don't need MLS per se. We can have our own separate website that everybody could get to. So that could be another hit as well.
Yeah. The Salt Lakers over on YouTube says, I like the Zillow search. And then says, so you're obviously going to short the stock, right? I don't really see. I'm torn. I think they're going to have to change their business model pretty drastically. The thing that makes me wonder, I don't know that the Zillow Flex program survives. So I'm going to say, I don't think Zillow Flex survives. I think their listing side marketing campaign will survive. But the reason why I think that Flex doesn't survive is because when clients see that Zillow is going to make 40% of the money if they click this button and go through them, if that's clearly disclosed, I know a lot of people that would not continue to click through there. They would say, no, never mind. I'll find somebody else. So I think they go more of
just take the name. There's three agents there usually, and just take one, if not three of the names if they don't recognize them, and Google them and find out more information and contact them directly.
Well, yeah, but it doesn't show you those names. Well, it does at the bottom. It does show you those names at the bottom. But when you hit contact agent, most consumers think they're contacting the listing agent.
Which is a whole nother issue.
Christian Harris 15 over on Instagram says, combine the shady lack of disclosures with the Flex program and now being hit with the FTC thing, it's low. It's on the defense and it's not looking good for them. I'm not sure how Zillow forcing Flex partners to push their clients to a mortgage company is not a violation of RESPA and is going to have the feds on their back soon. Yeah. Cooper Skelton, what's up, Coop? He says that Premier Agent will survive. I think Premier Agent has a chance of surviving because that's a monthly advertising module that you get leads from. However, I was a Premier Agent and I used to pay $5,000 a month and would get 20 to 30 connections. And, you know, we had a pretty good run. I them $1 and I would make $3. I was like, well, this is good. I mean, you may hate Zillow, but as long as I can give them $1 and make $3, it's good. It's good. And then suddenly it was not good. And they changed big time. And I was giving them $5,000 and they were giving me 5 connections. And maybe one of those every other month or so would hit. And that meant it was less than even. And so that's when we exited the program a couple of years ago. So now they have the showing, what's it called? Showing. It's not showing time, but it's showing something plus I don't know. Showcase. This was, yeah. So they have the showcase program that allows you to market one of your listings and get up to the front of the search. But if you're a consumer and you're seeing that when I click this button, I'm going to have to pay 40%, of the compensation goes to Zillow, are you going to continue to click that button? Are you going to continue to use the website? And I think there's a lot of people that are not going to. They're going to find some other way. So Cooper Skelton 88 said, can I call in? Yes, you can always call in. Find us on Clubhouse. So you download the Clubhouse app. You look for me, or you can look for the Real Estate Networking Club house. And then we're broadcasting live in that house. And that's how you join the call every week, Wednesday at 12 o'clock Central, 1 o'clock Eastern. The Salt Lakers said $74 today. He's doing the stocks. This is not a stock show. I'm not a licensed person, SEC. 57 is the 52-week low. 93 is the high. Interesting. Hillary Kirchhoff in Nashville says $5K a month. Is that really how much it costs? Depends. I was a premier agent. I wasn't a flex agent. So it depends on your market. You could buy in for less, but I wanted the number one spot in a zip code. And so to get that number one spot, it was about $5K. It just was not working for me. Yeah, I'll never forget those 2 months where I was like, this is no good anymore. And luckily I was month to month, so I ducked out of that. All right, so well, in my opinion, I say we've come to a consensus. We've, meaning all the thoughts in my head, have come to a consensus. I agree with Coop. I think Premier Agent would probably survive. I think the trouble is, will consumers continue to use it, or will they go to some other platform that doesn't charge their agent 40% if they click a button? Do the consumers even really care? That's the other part of it. If I'm a consumer, I would care. I'd be like, well, I feel like if Zillow is going to be taking 40% of the buyer agent compensation, then I'm already upside down and negotiating with this agent what my buyer agent compensation could be. So I think the perception is that they're not going to do as well in that negotiation of getting them down on money. And then Showcase, I think Showcase would survive. So I think Flex may be dead. I just don't see a world in which Flex continues, or maybe it goes down to like 25%, which is what a lot of agents are kind of used to paying for regular referrals all around the country. So the Salt Lakers says consumers are too stupid to care. I think there are a lot that are, but as a whole, you can watch them ebb and flow to make some pretty smart decisions. What's up, Matt?
I was going to say, at what point between whether it's relocation, Zillow, or a normal referral, at what point are the agents here? We've got we got 6 of us here that are actual agents. So at what point would you just go, no, I'm good. I don't want to pay that for a referral fee.
Yeah.
Just like you, 20, 25, paid as little as 20, as much as 30. Most often, 25% is a normal referral fee. But I've had a couple relocation deals because we have Lockheed Martin here in Marietta, and they do a ton of relocation, but they use Cardis. And the last time I spoke with one of their people, they said 60%.
60?
Yeah.
Is what you would make, or is what?
No. I would make 40.
No way. That's 20% higher than it used to be.
Exactly. Well, and I've only seen it go up just in the last 4 or 5 years here. But I told my buyer, I was like, look, unless there's some other incentive here for you, whether it's the company or the relocation company or the lender, like whoever you're using is giving you something else, I'm just going to be very honest with you. I'm not going to get out of bed for 40%.
No.
It's just the reality. I'm not making.
I could be a bartender, make more than that. Exactly. There's a lot of funner jobs you could have than showing houses.
Well, and again, in 21 or maybe even parts of 22 for a listing, I mean, I suppose you could make the argument that, there wasn't as much work to do in terms of, literally I knew agents that had their license 30 days that were just throwing a sign in the yard and sell just because that was the market. But as a buyer's agent,
yeah,
nah, I'm not a chance.
You're better off referring that buyer to somebody else who isn't a part of Cartus and doesn't have to go through that. If the relocating buyer doesn't have to use Cartus, you're better off just referring them and getting the 25% referral fee to somebody else.
I shared this last week, but I've helped a lot of feds move around, and they go through a particular service that tries to take 40% of your money. So I met this guy, and he was like, "Hey, I'm moving to the area. I want to use you as an agent." I'm like, "Great." We sign him up. We start to find the house, and then they say, "Well, the feds tell me I have to use this an agent with this group." And I was like, "Why?" And they said, "Well, I don't get the benefit if I don't use an agent out of this group." And so I said, "Well, how much is your benefit?" And he told me. I said, "Okay, let me see what the deal is." So I called the moving company, moving program or whatever, and they were going to take 40% of my income. And I said, "Well, I'll give you 30." And they said, "No, we can't do that." And I said, "Okay, I'm not going to give you anything." So then I called my client back and I said, "Hey, good news is I can more than match your benefit. I'm going to give you more money than they were going to give you, but you have to use me, and I'm not going to go through that program." And I asked him, I said, "Double check, make sure there's no other benefit you're missing out on, but I'm going to give you more money." And he was like, "Why are you giving us money?" I said, "Because they were going to take 40% of what I was going to make off the purchase of this property that we're writing an offer for." And I said, "They wanted to take 40% and they're only going to give you about 15%. So I'm going to give you about 20%. And he was like, "That's a good deal to me." And so that's what we did. So a lot of times, most of the time, all the benefit is not going to the buyer anyway. And so if you can match it, you make them real happy because they get more money, but you could even undercut it a little bit and still give them more money than what their moving benefit package is supposed to give them a lot of times. The Ginger Walker over on Instagram says it depends on where you get your leads from on fees and splits. I'm not as convinced that the flex will go anywhere fast. Boom, boom, boom. We shall see, the Ginger. I hope it does. I don't like those programs. I mean, talk about commission compression. We already as agents do way more for buyers and sellers than we used to. Even now for buyers, making videos for buyers and distributing those videos in neighborhoods in which my clients want to live and paying for ads that target those areas. And, if we door knock and, go out of our way to try to find a home for them, that's a lot of work. And that also is a lot of cost because you have the cost of the content you create. You have the cost of distributing that content. You have the cost of getting out there with time. You have the cost of pamphlets and mailers and everything like that you produce for a buyer. And now, previously for sellers, we've been doing that for years with all the videos and shorts and long form and marketing and all that kind of stuff to get it in front. So commission compression comes in that way, where it's now more expensive than ever to market a property, or in some cases to market a buyer to find the right property for them, to market to property owners. So on top of that, now they want to increase, like your Cartus thing to 60%. Matt, is crazy. But even 40% is tough to swallow for a listing, because then what am I making? I'm not making, if I give 30% to the government, 40% to Cartus, that leaves me 30%, but my marketing expense may be 15, maybe 20 in some cases. And then I have a split with a broker. I mean, you're just like working for free.
Yeah. Well, and I did have another one similar to you. He worked for New York Life Insurance, and he was here in Atlanta. He moved to Vegas, and they just moved to Orange County in California in the last month or two here. And New York Life, as an example, and not everyone does this, so check, with their lenders and whatever else. But to your point about asking, what are their benefits? So he was basically going to get $25,000 in closing costs, because he was in the kind of million, 1.25 range when he was looking in Vegas. And he said, if I use you here to sell, I don't get the benefit of closing costs on the other side. And, a lot of these corporations, especially, they really don't care. There's a cost that they're floating every month. Whether they own the house outright, which that used to be very common. My father-in-law worked for City, if you remember Circuit City before they went bankrupt. They owned
Their
a lot
circuits
of
are
real
state of the
estate.
art.
They were, until they got rid of appliances. That's what bankrupt. But anyway, that's a whole other story for another day. But yeah, he was going to get $25,000 in closing costs in addition to me having to take a pretty substantial hit. I think their referral fee was like 35%, which I told him was okay. But when he started digging into the financial side, he was like, I mean, Matt, I love you and I want to work with you, but
Yeah.
I also like $25,000. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you.
Yeah. Redfin had a deal that they got you going and coming somehow. And I can't remember the exacts of the deal, but basically there was a Redfin agent that was selling a property. And then he called me and he wanted to refer his client to me to help them buy, which I was happy to do. But then he said, wait, I'm not sure how this would work. I said, what do you mean? He said, normally we use what they would make, what the agent would make that's helping them buy to basically pay down something on the sale side. So the listing agent doesn't have to give up any money. I didn't fully understand it, but he said, I guess I need to find a Redfin agent. I was like, well, I mean, I'll give you 25%. I'll give you a referral. And he said, yeah, that's not going to work. And so there's some kind of deal. I don't really totally understand it, but there's some kind of big rebate that they took from the buying agent. And when I did the math on it, I was like, so the agent's only making like $1,000? And he said, yeah. I was like, nah, can't do that, bro. So, and it was a $700,000 property, but I'm not going to, for me, like, oh, is making $1,000 off the sale bad? No, but I pay my transaction coordinator $300. So that gives me $700. And then we're back to the, like, now I'm paying taxes. So that's, a $300 on taxes. So now it's $400. Now I have broker splits and, other just operating expenses. It's just, I don't make any money on it. And I'm sticking my neck on the line for over $700,000 worth of liability. If I screw up on that deal, they're coming after me, and it's just not worth the risk. So we'll see what happens with them. I think there's going to have to be some kind of big changes in that. And I think there's also going to be some big changes from all the reload companies, because this stuff is going to have to be disclosed to buyers. And I would not be shocked. I mean, I'll bet $100 that I don't know by the end of this year, but definitely by the end of next year, you see a lawsuit against Cardis and the reload companies from consumers that are like, wait a minute, I used a reload company. Did they charge my agent 40%? I didn't see that in the paperwork. So I think that's probably the next take after the Zillow Flex. It may be after the whole Flex deal, but I think it's on the chopping block. All right. Any last comments on that? Cooper, I see you joined Clubhouse. Welcome. I've added you back and I've invited you to speak. You have to accept the invite to speak. I cannot voice message you. There you are. You're up here. You wanted to talk about this Zillow deal. What's up, man? You have to hit the big unmute button on the bottom right. First time user. Oh. Hey, we can hear you now, Cooper. What's up, man?
So I partner with the Premier Agent with about 20 different agents in 3 different states. I'm going to talk about one of them that
Cooper's a lender, by the way.
Forced her to. Yeah, I'm a lender, by the way. There's an agent out of Houston, Texas that I used to partner with.
Don't
that
say the
last
name.
year they forced her. What?
I said, don't say the name.
I wasn't. They forced her to flex from wherever, from the Zillow Premier Agent. More or less, they are actively flew to her office, told her that they are in a very competitive market and are trending up the referral fee from 30 and 40% was what it started as to 50%. And then actively, constantly threatened to cut her off on a month-over-month basis if she doesn't send at least 10% of the closed transactions to Zillow Mortgage. Now, here's where it gets a little bit interesting, because this popped up about 2 weeks ago. She has a friend that, from her own sphere of influence, that she sold the house to. That person has a Zillow account. They are trying to come after her for the 40% referral fee because her friend has a Zillow accounts. So they're trying to go back and retroactively. Yeah, I'm not joking about this because she called me about it, and I was flabbergasted because when Zillow Mortgage kind of falls through, she calls me to kind of help pick up the pieces. But they're going into their internal software and seeing who has Zillow accounts and trying to qualify that as a Zillow referral.
That's nuts. That's crazy.
Now, this is my question because we live here in Little Rock, and so we have Little Rock Air Force Base. If Zillow Flex goes down and all these referral partners, Veterans United is next, and the relocation company.
I mean, I wasn't going to name names, but yeah, we've talked about them not by the name because as a agent, I'm not supposed to talk bad about lenders, but yeah, I think that's one that also is going to be tough.
That's one we can talk bad about.
Yeah.
That's what we can talk bad about.
Yeah, you lenders can do what you want on that.
Well,
hey, as a lender and an agent and a veteran, I can sit there and tell you that they overcharge. And when the buyer to use one of their VU referral agents, and then they take a percentage of that, they kick it back to the buyer, but then on the loan side, they overcharge you. They charge you a higher premium than most other lenders would, especially for veterans. Mm-hmm. I mean, it pays it. Basically, they are getting extra money just by using one of their referral agents.
I think Premier Agent will survive just because that's a subscription based service, and like I like it doesn't bother me one way or another. Some lenders love it, some lenders hate it. I like it because it allows me to be directly involved with the agent and have a vested interest in their business, helping them grow. But the Zillow Flex has kind of gotten out of control in some areas. Like my wife is an agent here in Central Arkansas. They're slowly starting to cut off more and more zip codes here in Central Arkansas because there's one company here that's on the Zillow Flex, and
it's not. What's interesting about that is the company that has that. Agents talk to me all the time about it and how they hate it, and the company is like living off of milking Flex, but as soon as you're relying on it, they're going to do to them the same thing they were doing to your friends, saying, "Oh, we want 50%."
Yep. The point is, well, they're trying to get more and more agents to do, and like I would say the vast majority of my Zillow space is coming out of the St. Louis market, and the two ladies that I work with up there, it's a monthly battle whether or not they're going to force them to flex, or are they going to allow them to go back to the subscription. Now, I will say this. Some markets, they have flipped back from Zillow Flex to going back to the subscription market, like Austin, because Austin's market is so down year over year. Yeah. And they're not getting agents to buy into it anymore. It's like they've turned on their own consumer base and cannibalized it. And now the people, when they're having to go to the subscription model, they don't want to be any part of it.
It's called marginal utility. They've hit this point where suddenly, and it feels sudden, but it's not. But they get to this point where the marginal utility, the usefulness of the program that they're trying to advertise, no longer hits the value to the people, and people reject it. They turn away from it.
I'm closing a deal actually here in about 45 minutes. These people started with Zillow Mortgage and then got all the way to the very end to discover that, the points and fees had been higher than they would want to. Oh. So the agent said, look, I'm not telling you that you need to call someone else, but can you call this guy? And this is what really made me mad because we do a lot of USDA loans here in Central Arkansas. The property qualifies for USDA 0% financing. The borrowers qualify for 0% USDA financing. Oh, and by the way, they even qualify for our local state program, Smart Start, where the rate is like 1 percentage point better than what Zillow had them at. Plus, they're getting all the benefits of going through USDA. Like, it's a better situation all day long.
Yep. Well, It's going to be, I mean, they got to claw back from a lot. I mean, they have 4 or 5 different lawsuits on them right now. We'll see what happens, but I think it's all going to change. It's got to change. And then those agencies that are relying on it so heavily, we've talked about in the past, the Redfin, now it's the Rocket Mortgage and Rocket Agents partnership. So we'll see. I think a lot of that is going to be changing, but thanks for jumping on Clubhouse for the first time.
Oh, thank you for having me, bud.
Yeah.
Call me sometime.
Yeah, dude. All right. I'm going to get to the, let's talk about the econ real fast. And then I got to run. So here we go. Oh, oops. Share this tab instead. There we go. All right. Pending home sales post the first decline in 3 months, even as mortgage rates drop. What is going on? I thought the Fed dropped rates and everything was supposed to be fine. Stubbornly high home prices, mortgage rates haven't fallen enough, and the lack of fresh homes to choose from, and the economic uncertainty. There is a lot of supply right now in the market, but if you look at the days on market, a lot of that supply is old, and because of that, people think that that's probably what is not getting people off of it. And well, that and the rates are still above 6 as advertised. Now, I have closed 2 deals this week, and both of those deals were below 5 or below 6. So they were in the mid to mid up 5. So we'll see what happens. The more that gets out in the news, the more that real estate agents start talking about those deals. Like, hey, I just had a house that closed at 5 point whatever. I think we're going to see a lot more people jump into the market. As a matter of fact, the next article, share of mortgages with rates above 6% climb to a 10-year high as more Americans adapt to a new normal. I mean, people got to move. So you're going to see more and more people moving out of their 2%, 3%, 4% rates to take on these 6% and 5% rates. And that's going to be the new normal for a while. So I wouldn't anticipate this chart changing much, only going up. Typical U.S. luxury home prices rose 4% to 1.25 million as sales fall to the lowest August level in over a decade. Here's our luxury sales volume. Wow, look at during COVID. It was wild. We got to 24.8%. Luxury home prices rose 3 times faster than non-luxury in that time period. So there are the year-over-year changes in the luxury prices. Here's the luxury, non-luxury home sales. So it's almost identical, but lagging. I wish they would have stacked these on top of each other, luxury and non-luxury. So I guess it is almost an identical. It's hard to tell from this chart. Anyway, we're right now at 57,258 in August of 2025 as far as luxury sales go. Non-luxury sales are 294,661. Boom. What's up, Justin? All right, continuing on. Starter home prices rose 4% as demand for higher priced options stumbles. So that's interesting, isn't it? The typical luxury home went up 4% and starter home prices also went up 4%. But the article says as the demand for higher price stumbles, the demand did stumble, but the prices still went up in that higher end, which is interesting. Typical U.S. starter home sold for a record of 260,508 in August. So 260,000. So your new starter home is 250K in a lot of the U.S. Starter home sales are still outpacing the other price tiers. As you can see, they're up 3.8%. The other price tiers are down 0.6% and down 1.2% in the luxury. And then we have mortgage refinance demand. It plunges 21% as interest rates hit a 3-week high. That's right. Interest rates did go up again. Now, if you recall these numbers, 2 weeks ago, it was like booming. It was like 50% higher. And then the week after that, it was like, oh, it plunged 1% week to week. No, it didn't. Or, oh, it was only up 1% week to week. So the gain plunged. And that we were like, no, that means it's still like 51% higher than 2 weeks ago. All right. Currently, total mortgage application volume declined 12.7% last week compared with the previous week, according to Mortgage Bankers Association. But what about year over year? Applications to refi home fell 21% for a week and were 16% higher than the same week a year ago. What about purchase applications? Applications for a mortgage to purchase a home declined 1% for the week. Ooh, oh no, that's terrible. And they were only 16% higher than the same week a year ago. Guys, read the entire stories, please. Don't get caught up in the headlines, because this is a terrible headline talking about mortgages plunging 21%. They're just taking the most incendiary stat they can out of this article. But when you look at this, there's a reason why they don't plot this on a map, on a chart, because then you would see how ridiculous the article itself is. All right, and the last news story for us to cover: homeowners with the sub-4 mortgage rates are on the move. They're buying newly built homes. So this just came out today on Realtor.com. A growing number of homeowners who have been lucky enough to secure a sub-4 mortgage rate are choosing to give them up in exchange for the opportunity to move to a brand new home, even if it means taking on a higher rate. As of late September, mortgage interest rates remain above 6%. Meanwhile, homeowners are holding on to the rates below the 6% threshold, which account for 80% of all outstanding mortgage debt. Many potential borrowers feel trapped at their current rates, and to be honest, quite often their affordability has been impacted by both rates and higher prices. However, a zoomed-in look at the Zoom 6% group reveals a more nuanced picture, showing homes shifting within this segment. Between the first and second quarters of 2025, the share of mortgages below 3%, harkening back to historic COVID pandy era lows, edged down from 20.7% to 20.4%, according to the latest report on outstanding debt. So notably, the next tier of rates between 3 and 4% saw an even sharper decline. Mortgages shrinking from 32.7% to 32.1% in the same period. Mortgages with 4 to 5 and 5 to 6 kept steady. So you are seeing more people make a decision to move. Job changes, right? Reloads. Just at the Little Rock Air Force Base, we're getting 500, I think it's 584 people PCSing into the area. So there's a lot of movement. There's a lot of activity. So there is business to be had. And if you're a real estate agent listening to this and you're like, man, I just don't feel like anything's happening in the market, I don't feel like the market's moving, do me a favor. And every time you feel that way, go to your multiple listing service and look up how many properties went under contract yesterday, because it was a lot. And that's a portion of the market that you didn't touch. And that always gets me going, man. Every time I look at that number, I'm like, oof, why didn't they call me? I need to get out there. I need to work. Because it is less about the market and more about how you respond to the market. So that's all I got this week, guys. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope to see you next week. Hopefully we'll have an update on some of these lawsuits with Zillow. If you find any news that I didn't cover, and you're like, oh, why didn't he cover this thing? It could be time, but I would love to know about it. So send it to me over on Instagram. My Instagram handle is RayZorback. That's RayZorback. RayZorback. And also we have a book club. If you want to join the book club, we are Unreasonable Hospitality. It's been a really good book. And we're going to be announcing the next book soon so that everybody can get geared up for it. It's going to kind of go through the holiday calendar. So it'll be a little bit different schedule, but if you want to join, just send me a message over on Instagram, RayZorback, RayZorback, and I'll add you to the book club. So thank you guys for joining me, and I'll see you next week.